What the hell is going on? How is League of Legends making one of the best Western animated dramas of all time? I'm not surprised that it looks gorgeous. Riot has some of the best artists in the world, but I am absolutely shocked that a story based on League lore is so good. Okay, listen. When I first started playing the game, the lore was, not the greatest. Let's look at a sample real quick. There once was a boy named Tryndamere. One day, some strangers killed his entire clan, for no apparent reason. Only he survived, hiding under the bodies of his parents and swearing vengeance on these, the assassins of Noxus. So he decided to join the League of Legends and fight in 5v5 arena battles that have nothing to do with that. Since pretty much every champion had an unintentionally funny backstory like this, to me, League lore was a running joke. Eventually, they retconned out the League as being part of the lore and focused on trying to make compelling characters, but the designs of their characters were still not always asking me to take them seriously. And if you could get past all that, even though the lore dumps were getting objectively better written, they were still lore dumps. Just paragraphs telling. All good stories have at least a little bit of mystery as a crucial ingredient. In order to keep going, I need to want to know what happens next, or why something is happening or happened. In my opinion, the core problem with the lore page style of storytelling is instead of creating mystery or interest, they actually remove it. I firmly believe that if they had simply released champions without publishing the lore page, that would make the lore much more interesting. They would still write it and use it to inform design, but it would leave more room for speculation. They tried to do this, sort of, but it never really worked because the mysteries were both too basic and too easily solved. For example, I never even knew that it was a mystery that Jinx and Vi are sisters. Apparently, this was never confirmed by anyone at Riot, but everyone still knew. They weren't exactly being subtle, though. Jinx has a bunch of voice lines that indirectly reference Vi, so it was pretty obvious that this was one of them.
You think I'm crazy? You should see my sister.
Into this cesspool of caricatured characters with boring infodumped stories comes the League of Legends animated TV show Arcane. And it's unbelievably good, especially when you keep in mind what they are working with. In order not to sink with the albatross of League storytelling to date around its neck, the writers of Arcane basically ditched everything that caused these problems and made an incredibly compelling, detailed story based loosely on the lore and designs of these characters. It's so loose that League's current lore pages do not line up with the events of this show. The character designs are also, in some cases, mercifully more serious, but still recognizable. For example, you can tell this is Caitlyn, but thankfully not this Caitlyn. And all this makes Arcane the best example I have ever seen of the idea that story premises don't matter. There are so many stories out there that sound great in theory but are just awful, and so many stories with weird premises that are incredible. It's all about execution. This show understands how to make a compelling story in ways that all previous League lore never did. Hell, in ways that most television shows don't understand. Every single character is human with human mistakes and human problems. Their actions are informed by their characterization and they make sense. Nothing feels contrived. Nothing feels unearned. In a huge cast of characters, some new and some old, they all get to have their arcs, their stories, and their moments. Honestly, the original characters are some of the best, but with what they are working with, that makes a certain amount of sense. Still, this is an incredible achievement. The way they handle these characters makes the Marvel Cinematic Universe look like it was made by amateurs. Speaking of which, you know who they hired to write this story? To create this miracle? Two dudes at Riot who have never written anything professionally in their lives. Christian Link has made music for Riot, and Alex Yee has written some of their narrative. Listen, if they can make this, whatever your dreams are, go out and make them happen. It's inspirational. But I don't want to give too much credit to the writers alone. They deserve a lot because of how intricately plotted it is and how well every moment works. But this was a labor of love, and everyone who worked on it played their part. This might be the best animation I have ever seen. Look at how expressive their eyes are and how they move. This is my favorite scene in the entire show. Now, part of it is personal. I love it when animation styles are juxtaposed like this. But it's also a perfect intersection of animation and writing. Echo and Jinx were childhood friends, but we don't see much of that in the first 3 episodes because there just wasn't time to fit it in. The relationship was not directly relevant to the plot, and the plot was moving fast. So as they face each other, Echo remembers how he couldn't beat her as a kid. This little sequence perfectly shows us the friendship that we didn't have time to see before, and it shows how hard this is for Echo, both emotionally and in terms of skill. But it also primes us to see how difficult his mad dash to Jinx is about to be, and it allows us to make sense of it. With a melee weapon against a gun, all you can do is hope to close as fast as you can and not get hit. This flashback makes that goal clear. It lets us see what he is going to attempt, so that when it happens fast, we are ready to make sense of it, know how difficult it's going to be, and it clarifies the relationship for us. Beautiful. This is the kind of efficient, engaging storytelling I love to see. The writing and the visuals are working together perfectly, and that's how League of Legends made one of the best Western animated television dramas of all time, which is a sentence I never thought would come out of my mouth. This isn't to say the show is above criticism. I have my nitpicks, doubts, and worries. I didn't particularly love how it ended, for example, but this isn't a detailed analysis of the show. This is just a reminder that we shouldn't judge a show by its premise or what universe it belongs to, because in the end, it all comes down to the execution. Everybody wants to be my enemy, right away, away. I never be saying no way. My enemy prayed away, I swear I never be a saint. My enemy.